Okay, let's try this again. What's up, guys? It's Satyr from Satyr's Run. Today we're doing a little bit of model work, and I wanted to give you guys just a little bit of a indication of what we've got going on. So a little bit different setup than what I normally run. And turn the monitor volume down a little bit here. So basically, a little bit different setup. Took a little bit to dial in. Of course, I'm using my laptop to do this, and I'm at my hobby table, of course, with my webcam, and that way you guys can see what I'm working on. So those of you who don't know, and I'll give you a little bit of a detail. Let me grab something here. That way you guys can get a little bit of a better idea of what's going on. So let's see. That's what she's working on. So we'll go with something like this. So, for those of you who are not familiar with Warhammer, Warhammer 40K is actually a really big battle game. So it is an absolutely massive game that's played through several different things. So basically what it is you have these little minis that are, and actually I'll show you kind of a scene that's played out in one of the books. So I don't know if you can see this very well. Let me turn off my work light for a minute, and that might actually help. So, for example, this picture here, that's a group of minis that are set out on a table. And you have like some more here. So basically, and I'll throw this back on. What you have is you get kits like this. So if you can see this, this is a set of Harlequins. They're a new race that was introduced here in 8th edition, and of course it tells you a little bit about each of them. And let's see, got to get my orientation right here. So it shows you a little bit of detail about them and everything. So usually when you get one of these kits, and this happens to be my mate's kit, she's planning on doing Harlequins, you get several things inside the box. So I'll go ahead and pull out a few things and show you what you get. And so I'll set this over here. So you get your instruction booklet, and this tells you tools that you need, tells you how to read the instructions, and it shows you how to assemble the models and what they should look like when you get through with them. Then it even gives you the stats on the models. So these are basically your combat cards, or what they call combat cards. So usually in the kit, sometimes you'll get transfers. So these are decal transfers that you use water to put onto the models after you get them finished. You get bases. So since this is a flying model, you get a clear base. Combat bases will be black like this. So this is a combat base. So these are flying bases, so they're clear. And you get little stands so you can adjust the height of how high you want it depending on how you want to set it up. And it actually, since there's two of them, you get two bases and two stands. And then you get your sprue, or what they call sprues, and this is what everything is attached to. And I don't know if you can see it, but let's see if I can get it to focus right. Okay, so if you see the little numbers on there, so everything on these little sprues are numbered, and it tells you what to take off and what to use when you're putting these models together. And so that's usually what you get in a box. So it depends on the model, depends on what you get in the box. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything put back in here. And of course, like I said, she's doing Harlequins. And she's working on hers, and I can't put her Harlequins together, so she's got to do this herself. So other than that, then you'll get big kits like this. So this is a box that I'm putting together for my old boss. And it's a Horus Heresy box set. This is actually a game. So if you look at the back of it, it shows you how to play the board game. And this is a basic mini Warhammer game. So this is a kind of an idea of how the game runs. But of course, if you open the box up, inside, you get different things. So you get your attack cards. You get your dice. Most of these games are played with mostly D6s, few D10s. Of course, like I said, there's some transfers. You have a play board. So this is a game board that's in here. And then you have lore booklets or booklets on the armies. And these are what I was saying are your attack cards or your army cards. So this tells you about each of the models, tells you about their abilities, their powers, and how to play the game. So basically, this just gives you lore. So this tells you a little bit about each of the armies, each of the things, tells you how to play the game, how to set up the board, how you do your movement phases and everything. So this is a good way to get into it, but these are kind of rare. You don't get a lot of these sets very often. So he got lucky. He landed a couple of these sets, and he's putting them together to use for his armies. Let's see. Then you have, for example, and I'll show you a couple of mine. So you have things like this. This was one of the first models that I ever got. My boss gave me. And I put it together. And this is just for looks. I won't actually ever play with this model when I get it finished. This is another pretty that I'm putting together. It'll never be played with, but it's just going to look good. It's going to sit on a shelf. And it's called a Helldrake, or a Chaos Space Marine Helldrake. As you can see, this really beautiful model. I'm not painting it this way. I have a different paint job that I'm doing on mine. But this is what it'll look like. And then you can get kits like this, which are starter kits. So it's got a couple of guys in there. It's got a flying unit or a command unit. Tells you a little bit about them, how to put them together, what they're going to look like, how to paint them. It lists the paint colors on here. So it tells you how to paint them. But this is a good way to start. It's 23 minis. I can't remember the points on this. I'll let you guys check out the side. I can't remember how many points this is, but it's not many. I think it's under 900 points worth of minis because the game is played by points, or the game is points based. So that gives you an idea of what's going on. So what I'm working on right now is basically right now I'm putting together the Horus Heresy box for my boss. And I've gotten pretty much everything together except for these line of Astartes, or Astartes. There's 30 line of Astartes that I have to get put together. Basically, I've been knocking these things out assembly line style. In this box is all the parts for them. So they're all compartmentalized. Like there's 3 guys worth here. There's 3 guys worth there. So these 5 compartments, or these 10 compartments right here, are all 3 guys apiece. All these extra things, this stuff, all of this are just extra bits from me putting models together and just stuff that I've kept to use later. So basically what I'm doing, so to get into this, you need a few tools. I would recommend some sort of bucket or tub for sprue bits. You're going to need glue. I use the Citadel glue. It's got a nice little applicator needle on there. This works great for getting exact amounts. The other thing you can use is crazy glue. We use crazy glue for putting the magnets on the bases, and these are all magnetized. This entire tray is actually magnetized, so you can turn the entire tray upside down and the guys will stick to it. And it's great for when you're working on stuff. You can move it around, you can carry it, and you don't have to worry about losing your guys. Bigger models like these little guys will get away with one magnet. You get into the bigger models or the bigger kits, then you probably are going to be looking at 2 magnets. Yeah, so you'll get into where you have 2 magnets. My boss actually puts 4 on all of his guys. So some of the tools you'll need, of course, you'll need a really nice pair of wire snips or wire cutters. You don't have to buy the Citadel brand or the Games Workshop brand. You don't have to buy name brand. These are like a cheap pair from Walmart that I paid like $2 for. They work great. The idea behind these is to get into like these little sprues, to get into like little areas like this, to be able to cut these pieces off. So you'll be able to cut that. You can get in like this and cut these little bits here. So you can see that. So you can cut the sprues off from around your pieces. I've also got another pair. This came with a kit. I got a kit that came with some parts. I don't have the other thing in here, but it came with these are Citadel brand cutters. They work fairly well. I happen to like these with a little bit bigger throw on them like this. This I picked up from my hobby store. It's just a little cheap pair of tweezers. This is great for little finite getting in there and getting like heads put on, because some of this stuff is really tiny. Like you look at these heads for some of these Necrons, they're really, really tiny. So, you know, being able to get a pair of tweezers on them and get them in where you need them, that's great. I did pick up one of these. This is a Citadel brand mold line tool. Very heavy. But it's a Citadel brand mold line tool. And basically you use this for cleaning up the edges, and you'll see me use it. But this is basically an arthritis saver, because you get one in a kit that is about half the size of that. So it's only about that wide. So when you have to hold that and you have to do mold lines, you really, you get your fingers, crooked up like that trying to use that little thing. So I like this one because I can get a grip on it. I can use it many different ways. I can manipulate it. I can do different things with it. So I prefer one of these. You don't have to get one, but actually I'll show you the smaller one. Let me get my main. This is actually my main toolkit. So this is what I use normally. And these are just fishing tackle boxes. You can get them from Walmart for fairly cheap. They work great for this kind of stuff. But as you can see, this is the one that comes with the Learn to Paint kits. So like I said, this little guy, if you're trying to use this for doing mold lines, this is like arthritis inducing. It's great to use for stuff, but I would definitely recommend the bigger one. Pipettes are really nice to use for when you're mixing paints or doing paint work. I have various little rat tail files for cleanup work. you know, I've got a pack of magnets, what's left of my magnets. And then all of my paintbrushes, I've got several different ones. My favorite ones that I've bought so far, some of these are Citadel brand, like, let's see. Like, I think this little guy is a Citadel brand. And these are Army Painter. But these are really, really tiny. This is for doing a lot of really detailed work. As you can see, and I'll hold it up here and see if I can get the light on it, or get the camera to focus on it. But if you look at this little guy, this thing is like extremely, extremely tiny. It's actually not going to focus on it. But it's like very, very, very fine, very tiny bristle. I've got 3 different sizes. So you need a lot of different brushes. Like these are for basing. So you slowly get a collection of stuff. And this is a must. And then paints. Of course, this is the fun thing. So all of this is paints. You can pick up these. They're pretty good for holding pieces that need to be glued or worked in a specific way. So they're kind of nice. I keep big bits of sprue like this. So this is just big bits of sprue that I can paint and I can test paints on. So these are primered so that I can just test paint whenever I need to, and I can test layers, or I can test combinations of paints. BBs. These are great. Pick you up a box of these to put in your paint so that you can mix your paints. And what I do is, let me see if I can find one that's got them in there. Trying to find a needle in a haystack here. All right, so this one. So if you see any of my paints and they have 2 little black dots, and I'll try to get it up here. You see the 2 black dots there on the bottom? Those 2 black dots say that there's BBs in here. And the BBs don't rust, so they won't change your formulation of your paints. But with the BBs in there, you can actually mix your paints better. So like there's 2 in that one. And you can hear them. So you can actually hear them. So little tricks. I prefer the paint pots like this. So this is Citadel brand paint. Works great. So you get different, different paints, different things, and you just slowly collect stuff. So you have many different things that you need for painting. So so what we're actually going to do now is I'm going to kill that off. Keep chat open. All right, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to cut off the other camera, and so we'll just have this field. And what I'm going to do is show you guys how to finish some of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually starting on the sergeants. So I have to do 3 of these guys. So as you can see, what I've actually got to do is do their weapons. I've got to put in their shoulder pads. I've got to do their guns, their helmets, and all these little accessories. So what I'm going to do is set all this stuff aside like that. Keep my instructions right here where I can see them. Have my glue standing by. And so we're going to get started. So I'm going to dig out all of the stuff for these guys. And you try not to mix it up because it's a lot of pieces. It's a lot of little bits, so I'm trying to make sure I don't drop anything into another bin. Okay. So I've got all the stuff for these guys. So I'm actually going to move that because I don't need it now. And I'm going to show you some of the other guys that I've got done already. So, for example, this is one of the Primarchs that's already finished or already completed. Let's see, I'm going to kill off. Let's see, maybe I can pull some light up here and get this to focus. So this guy is one that's already done. And let's see. Alright, so maybe it'll focus now. So this guy is already done. And so as you can see, there's a lot of little bits, there's a lot of little pieces that go into these guys. There's 2 Primarchs, so that's one. And then this is the other guy. So let's see, come on, focus. There it is. So that's the other Primarch. There are other guys, like I have a big heavy gunner here. It's a big heavy gun. I've got some silent sisters. I've got some Praetorian Guard. I have a flag bearer. So this guy was a lot of fun. See if it'll focus. Come on, focus. Camera's not focusing. So that's another one. Like I said, camera's not really focusing. It's not cooperating. But there are a lot of, these guys were a lot of fun. I did some fun stuff with this guy. I didn't have to do him this particular way. Come on. Yeah, I didn't have to do this guy this way. I give him the lightning claws. So I just had fun with that one. And what I'll do is I'll take the camera down and I'll kind of pan it through and get a picture of all these guys that are done. As a matter of fact, maybe I can just do it this way. So as you can see, these are all the ones on the back row are all ones that are already done. So what I'm going to be working on is these guys. So what we're going to do is, since we're working on the sergeants, we're going to go ahead and pick up these first 3. And like I said, each one of these is compartmentalized by 3. So we're going to be working on these guys primarily today. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to move my camera down so that you guys can see what's going on down here instead of just seeing this big flood of light here. So give me just a second to move my camera setup a little bit. Alright, so this should be better because now everything should be right here. So now you guys can see what's going on because you're right here, and hopefully the camera will cooperate. So of course these are already done. As you can see, they're pretty much ready to go. They're just missing the heads and all the little detail stuff. So what I'm going to do is pick through this stuff and I'm going to organize it by when I need it. So these are shoulder pads, so they'll go down here. Arms, claws. So one of these guys is going to get a weird piece, so that goes together. That is the chain sword, so that goes there. That is the hammer. That's all headpieces, headdresses, so that'll go down here. Okay, and then arms. Okay, there we go. So one guy's getting this, one guy's getting the hammer, one guy's getting that. So that's everything kind of compartmentalized. So as you can see, I've gotten everything divided out. Let's see, get you guys at a different angle here. Okay, so basically everything is already laid out here as I need it. I got the heads, shoulder pads are over here. And actually, let me scoot everything over this way a little bit. Okay, so that way you guys can see a little better. So everything is kind of laid out by how I need it, and it's laid out in groups as to how I'm going to work with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start by pulling these little guys off. And this is where the sprue bucket comes in handy. So now is when we start to work with our major tools. So I'm going to set these guys up here. And keeping your work area kind of organized and keeping everything kind of clean helps you a lot with understanding where things are and helping you keep track of what's going on with what. Okay. And I have the mold line tool, which I can use for stuff, and I'll actually show you how it's used. So, for example, it's going to be hard to see on this little guy, but you see that little bit right there, that little whitish part right on the end of that? And it's hard to see. All right, come on. It's hard to really see because, like I said, the camera's focusing on my hand. But there's a little white bit right here that is what's known as a sprue, and there's another one right there. So that's a sprue line. That's where, for example, these pieces are connected to this little tree right here. That's what we call a sprue. When you take these pieces off, you'll have a little thing called a sprue line, which would be right in here, or a sprue bit, or a mold line. And so what you do with this is usually you'll take this and you'll come into this where this little bit is, and you just rub it a little bit just to take that off, and you're smoothing it out to get it ready for painting. So it's just that easy. Same thing here. You just come in and you basically just run this little mold line tool over that rough area, and it cuts it out and gets rid of it and smooths it out. But this does the same thing. The X-Acto knife is really nice for this because you can also hold it many different ways like this, and you can get in here and get all this little finite stuff. So, you just keep doing this, and eventually you'll get it nice and level, nice and even. You get all this extra sprue and all this extra nasty stuff off. Just like that. And then that piece is pretty much ready to go on. So then you set it aside. You grab your next piece. If there's any sprues on it, sprue bits, you take them off, you put them in your sprue bit bucket. And you just keep doing this. And you don't have to worry about it being perfect because you're going to go back and you're going to paint this. So a lot of this stuff, a lot of the imperfections are going to go away. You just want to try to get as much of it as you can. And then once you got everything down, then you go through and you look at your assembly. And so this guy has to be glued onto this right here. So I want to make sure that I've got all of my little bits and all of my little stuff cleaned up good. Like that. Then I take my glue, make sure it's liquidy, and I usually keep a rag, like you'll see, like a rag or a towel or something, and this is for catching excess glue or anything like that. So paint, glue, and sometimes you got to play with your glue to get it just to work. Especially if it's been sitting for a little bit. I usually keep a needle that I pierce the tip of my glue with if I need to, like that. And then you'll see like a very small drop of glue. I usually knock the first little bit off. So then you come in here. And you put a little bit of glue on there. It doesn't take a whole lot. And then you just put your piece together where it's got to go and you get it glued good. And you give it a blow and let it dry. And you just set it aside. And that piece is assembled. So then you continue on. So like this has several little sprue bits on it. So we're going to take those off. So of course, you'll see me twist these off. And you have to be real careful and make sure you're only taking off sprue bits and not parts. And sometimes it's hard to tell. Alright, so we got the hammer cleaned up, so now we need an arm. So you should have 3 arms, 3 straights. So you got 3 straights and 3 bents. And actually, I don't think I needed the extra straight because I think one of these is going to go away because I'm using that arm instead. So I need one of these guys cleaned up. And this is really the tedium of this hobby, is what I'm doing right here, is assembling your things. Once you get them assembled and you start playing, it's a fun game. A lot to remember, but once you get into it, it's fun. But sometimes there's people that do the hobby just for this part. They love painting and they love putting together the models because it's kind of a relaxing work. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a dry fit. Yeah. So this piece is going to end up going right in like right here. So I want to make sure this is all cleaned up and nice. Okay. Okay. And normally I'd be listening to music or, watching some random thing on YouTube on my laptop while I'm doing this. But since most of these streaming services are a little anal about music in the background because of copyright issues, you can't just idly jam music anymore and work. So unfortunately, I've got a DJ friend of mine I've talked to about just doing some channel music for while I'm just doing this kind of stuff, but I haven't heard anything from him yet. So maybe if we get settled in somewhere and I can dig out everything, I'll start making my own channel music. Since we might not need that arm, we'll set that over there. Okay. So these guys are all getting those. They're all getting packs. So I'm giving them all belt clips. So basically what I'm going to do is go through and assemble all the little bits so that it's all modular, and then all I got to do is just put it all on the big things, and then it saves a little work. Normally, when we do a Saturday or a gaming day with my boss who got me into this hobby, we sit around and we joke, tell lies, and just give each other a hard time, and we have a good time with it. Um, it's just one of those fun little random things to do. And again, if you're going to get into this hobby, it's a fun little hobby to get into. It's got some value built into it because these things only increase in value. You might buy a model. Excuse me a second. You might buy a model for 30, 40 bucks, and by the time you do all of this, paint it and get it looking good, you can probably flip it for $100, $200. There's people that make serious money off of doing this as a hobby. I know of a couple of one of my buddies that comes over and games with my boss. He makes he'll make upwards of $20 or $30 a model, assembling and painting models for people. So he charges like $20, $30 a model or $20 or $30 per hour to do work like this. So I mean, he can make some serious money. And there's a thing within Games Workshop called a Golden Demon painter, and they are like the best of the best as far as painting. They do amazing paint jobs. But they're the best of the best. Their Golden Demons are basically the best of the best when it comes to painting. So we call him Muffin, and Muffin Man is probably Golden Demon level painter. We really wish he could get a Golden Demon, but he is seriously a Golden Demon level painter. Speaking of Muffin, probably next time I'm able to go over in game, I'll probably get some shots of some of his better work. He's got a modded Chaos Knight that I would love to get some pictures of. And I've got a secret project that I'm working on. Actually, I need to sit down, and I may do a video of army building so that you guys can see what goes into building an army, which relates to my little idea that I want to do. But I'm eventually going to have, I'm actually going to hire Muffin to paint the centerpiece to my army. And my boss knows I'm looking for one because he's probably going to have to order it for me. He's got a guy that can get me the kit for a really nice discount over what you pay retail for it. But I'm looking at getting a Mars Alpha Pattern Titan Warlord. And the retail model itself is about $3,000. But it's going to be the centerpiece of my specific army that I want to build, because I want to do an Imperial army. Got to crack open a window because it is a little warm. There we go. Okay, so back at it. Of course, I lost monitor audio. Okay. I love technology. But anyway, probably not going to keep the stream going very much longer. I think I'm going to finish out these 3, and then I might do another stream of army building so you guys can see what goes into that. Matter of fact, if my book is up here, I don't know if it is or not. Let me look real quick. Don't see my book. Oh, yeah. I don't see my book, but I have a book that has my army in it and has all my stats. I don't see it up here, so I think it's downstairs. But basically, it's to build an army, you have to know how many of these guys you're going to run, how many points each one is, and then come up with how you're going to set your army up, because different guys cost different things. So let's say like these guys are 10 points apiece. So you could easily cover 30 of these guys for 300 points. But let's say a guy like this is, since he's got a big heavy weapon, let's say he's 25 points, and then you got to count in the points for his weapons. So that's another 10 points. So this guy would be 35 points to field. Primarchs, because of their powers and their abilities, plus their weaponry, you're probably talking 100, 200 points a piece to get those guys out. And something like this guy. So this is a command barge. Okay. This guy, for example, to field, it doesn't have his stats on here, but I think these are 500 points to field it. So, actually, all right, so here we go. So this is the book that comes with your Start Collecting, that big box that I showed you. So this is the assembly manual for that. And in here, so you get, make sure I don't lose any pieces. So for example, you have this guy, which is an overlord. Okay. If you look right here, this is his attack card. And you probably can't see it very well. But if you look on there, you see this is his attack card, and you see the different points. And basically, these guys all have different points. Now you can do powers, because if you notice right here, it says power 7. But they also range off of points. So I would have to get the manual out to look it up. But each guy, like I said, each weapon counts as a certain number of points, and then each guy counts as a certain number of points. So basically, to build an army, you're looking at 2,000 points, or a 2,000 point base. So you start with 2,000 points, and then you take your points off for your guys. And so, I'm fielding 30 of these guys. So I have to calculate, okay, each one of these guys is 10 points, and then each one of them has different weapons. These all are going to have pretty much same weapons. 3 of them are going to be sergeants, so they have these special weapons. 3 of them are going to be standard bearers, so they're going to have a certain number of points and a certain number of weapons. But the other 24 are all going to be set up exactly identical, so their points would be easily calculated. 5 Terminators may cost different than 5 Praetorians. 5 Silent Sisters might cost different than the Primarchs. So you kind of have to figure out what army you want to run. Then you got to look at your points for each individual guy, and then calculate up the points of each guy and the points of each weapon. So basically right now what I'm trying to do is figure out where I want this pack to be, because it's got a specific spot it's got to sit in. So I want to get these on before I try to put anything else on, so that I don't have to fight getting under pieces. I can just go ahead and put this on. Baby, what you do? Okay. So you guys kind of have an idea of what this goes on and how this works out. So what I think I'm going to do is probably cut the stream here for now. And like I said, I'll finish out these 3 guys, and then probably do the video on how to build an army next, and that way I can have a little more detail. And I'll probably do that on my big PC, so I got a little more power and I've got a little more ability to do things, because right now my laptop is kind of limited and bandwidth is kind of limited. So I'll do it on the big PC, and that way I can have a little more desk space and a little bit more room to move some stuff around and be able to pop up some windows and throw some stuff up there to show you guys how to build an army. So for